Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Azul's Brewing Better Java LinkedIn Live series. I'm Andy Savitz, CMO at Azul, and our goal for those of you who are new to Brewing Better Java is to bring together thought leaders to discuss pressing topics that are trending with the Java programming language, but also with your investments in Java. We do this in a short 20-minute live format. Today, we're going to talk about trends with Oracle's market share and adoption, largely that's been catalyzed by their 4 licensing and pricing changes that they've made over the past 4 years. Specifically, we're going to unpack the insights that we garnered through a survey and report that Azul recently released. We had over 650 respondents globally. And the topic of the report was Oracle's Java usage, pricing, and migration. So there's a lot of insights that we garnered there that we're going to discuss today here on this LinkedIn Live series. So I'm joined by Simon Ritter. He is the Java champion extraordinaire. He's also an employee of Azul, so I'm a bit biased. But for those of you that know Simon, and many of you do, he's well regarded within the Java industry. He's our Deputy CTO, and he's one of the 386 Java champions around the world. He speaks regularly at events. In fact, he's at one now. And also at user groups. He's the author of Open JDK Migration for Dummies, terrific asset. And as Deputy CTO at Azul, he spends most of his time advising organizations on how they're going to implement and architect their Java applications and infrastructure, and generally how to optimize their commercial licensing agreements. So Oracle is a topic that comes up all the time for Simon. But Simon was instrumental in the direction and the concepting of the survey that we're going to talk about today. So he'll have tremendous insights into some of the results that came from that. So welcome, Simon. What do you say? What say you?
Great. Thank you very much to be here. Yeah, it's always a pleasure. We have some great conversations in these LinkedIn Lives, don't we?
We do. So, but hopefully everybody else agrees with that, not just us. All right. Well, Simon, are you ready to talk some Java?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. All right, so Simon, we hear a ton about Oracle market share, like I said, as a result of the licensing and pricing changes that they made, and in generally about the adoption of Open JDK. Here you can see a metric: 86% of organizations are moving off Oracle Java, moving being that they have or they intend to. So could you elaborate on that? And again, this is one of the first findings that we're talking about coming from the Oracle Java usage, pricing, and migration survey and report, as you can see labeled up above.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Yeah, it really is no surprise to see this result in our survey. And the reason for that is that if we look at the way that the market has been, if you go back sort of 5 years, before that, everybody just assumed Java was free, and they would go to the Oracle website, they would go to Sun before Oracle acquired them, and you would just download Java and you could deploy it for your enterprise applications, whether it's on servers, whether it's on desktops. You could use it for pretty much anything you wanted. The only restriction was on embedded usage. But for commercial organizations, just download it from Oracle, get it for free, get the updates, everything was great. And then about 5 years ago, we've seen this shift in terms of the way that Oracle licenses Java. We've been through 4 distinct changes around both licensing and pricing. And that has resulted in pretty much everybody thinking, hang on, we're no longer able to access Java in the way that we used to without having to pay for support from Oracle. And that has prompted people to look around for alternatives. And the great news is that Java is an open source project. Same way that Linux is an open source project. When you want to use Linux, you look around, there are multiple distributions of Linux that you can use, whether it's Red Hat or Ubuntu or whoever. The same thing applies to Java, and there are multiple distributions you can use. Most people obviously have been using Oracle until now, but because of the license changes, the pricing changes, there's now a variety of distributions you can use. If you're running on AWS, you could use Ritter. If you're running on the Microsoft Azure cloud, you can use the Microsoft version on that cloud. If you're running outside of those things, then we have Azure, and we have Azul's Zulu Java that you can use as an alternative. So there are choices that you can make. So it really is no surprise that almost 9 out of 10 people are in the process of moving off Oracle Java. They're looking for an alternative that isn't going to be as expensive.
Well, you started to touch on to our next result survey. So let's dig into that a little bit more, and let's talk about exactly why, because we asked the participants of the survey, why are you moving off Oracle Java or considering moving off Oracle Java? And here we display the top 3 findings. But why don't you elaborate, Simon, and give us a little bit more context and some of the texture that you hear in the field all the time. In fact, like I said, you're at an event now. Maybe you could even elaborate on some of what you're hearing there.
Exactly. I'm at the SAMS Europe conference, the Software Asset Management Software conference, and I've been talking to a lot of people today about exactly this kind of thing. And as you can see, I mean, the first statistic there, 53% are concerned about Oracle licensing costs. I'm actually surprised that's as low as that, because Oracle changed their pricing policy last year, January last year. And what they said was, rather than basing the price that you would pay for your Java support and maintenance on how much Java you were using, which is quite logical, so you base it on the number of cores, the number of processes you're using on the server side, you base it on the number of desktops on the desktop side, which seems fair. What they said was they're going to switch to an employee-based metric, count up how many people you employ, and that's full-time employees, part-time employees, even contractors, and even people who are working for a third party who are managing your IT infrastructure for the Java. Then you multiply that by a number and you get the price that you're going to pay for Java. And what we've seen is some, really astronomical increases that people are facing in terms of their pricing. So that's one thing that's a real concern to people, is just the sheer increase in the price that they're looking at to pay for Java. The second one there, 25% looking at an Oracle audit risk. And that, again, is something that we're seeing a lot, is that Oracle are coming along and they're saying, okay, we know you're using Java. We need to qualify that. We need to audit you to find out whether the numbers that you provided us with are accurate. And so they're within compliance of the agreement that you have with us already. And if they're not, then obviously Oracle are looking to adjust the pricing and switching again to this new pricing model, so that people are facing a very large increase in their pricing for the whole Java environment. And then 38% uncertainty. And that is caused because we've seen that, 5 years ago, they introduced a new license, the Oracle Technology Network License Agreement. That meant that you had to pay for your Java usage. That applied to JDK 8, update 211 and later, also applied to JDK 11. Then they decided with JDK 17 that they'd introduce a different license, which they called the no-fee terms and conditions. That sounded great because it meant that you didn't have to buy a Java SE subscription for more situations, and people felt happier about that. But then you have to be careful, because of course the reality is that license doesn't work in perpetuity. It means that after 3 years, you then revert back to this Oracle Technology Network License Agreement, and that means that you have to pay for a Java SE subscription. We're literally seeing that happening right now. JDK 17 was released 3 years ago, and now, because of the release of JDK 21 a year ago, it means that we're now switching back to the license agreement, which means you have to buy a Java SE subscription if you're using Oracle JDK 17. And then last year, as I said, they changed the pricing. So there's all these changes that are happening, and people are very uncertain about, well, are they going to carry on doing this, or are they going to make more changes in the future? And that's leading to, as we can see, nearly 40% of people who responded to our survey being concerned about, even if we carry on using Java from Oracle, even if we're prepared to pay the price that they're asking, how do we know that in a year's time or 2 years' time or 3 years' time, they're not going to change the license again, they're going to change the pricing again, they're going to change things around and make our lives very difficult. So all of these things are contributing to why people want to move off Oracle, find something that's more reasonably priced, something that's stable, something that provides the same level of security, same level of stability that they have at the moment, without all these complications that they're seeing.
Awesome, Simon. So this next insight that we're going to share is extremely important, because I think there is a misconception that to make that switch from Oracle JDK or Oracle Java to Open JDK, Simon, is difficult. When in fact it's pretty clear from the results in the survey is that it's not. So I was hoping you could elaborate a little bit about that. And, given that you work with a lot of Java migrations and deployments, you could give some context, from your own experiences.
Yeah, this is one of the great things about Java is, like I said, it's like Linux in that it's an open source project. So you have a distribution that you can use, and whether it's Oracle, whether it's Azul or somebody else. But unlike Linux, Java has a formal standard. And we have the Java community process, JCP, and each version of Java has a specification that's created for it. And that gives you a complete description of what the language does, what the Java virtual machine does, all of the libraries, and so on. And that's really powerful because associated with that, there's a thing called the TCK, the Technology Compatibility Kit. That's a set of tests that you can use to verify that what you provided as a distribution matches that specification. And so when people create a distribution of OpenJDK, like we do at Azul, we can then verify that using this test suite, 150,000 tests, we have to pass every single one of them to show that what we're creating is functionally identical to what you get from Oracle. And that means that you've got this really, really high level of confidence that if you take your application that's running on Oracle JDK, which is built from OpenJDK source, and you move it to another TCK tested build of OpenJDK, like Azul's platform core, Zulu builds, because it's been TCK tested, functionally identical, your applications are going to run in exactly the same way that they do on Oracle JDK. So it means that the migration process is much simpler. It's not like having to think to yourself, okay, we're going to have to change the application code, we're going to have to recompile our applications, we may have to change some of the configuration settings. None of that has to happen. You can simply use it as a drop-in replacement and off you go with your new applications. Sure, you want to do some testing, you want to make sure that everything works in the same way, but that's really the sort of majority of the work you're going to have to do. From the approach of migration, what you're really looking at is simply doing an update in the way that you would normally do, except this time, rather than taking the update package from Oracle, you take the update package from Azul or whoever provides your distribution. So again, that makes your life very easy in terms of how the migration process works. And we can see from the results that we got there that 75%, so 3/4 completed their migration within 1 year. This is one of the things that people often ask us is like, how long is this going to take? How much effort is involved and so on? And that's a difficult question to answer in sort of general terms, because it really depends on how many machines you've got, how many applications you've got, how many different versions of Java you've got, and so on. But realistically, we say to people, if you're running a reasonable size enterprise set of applications, think about having a year to do that migration. That will give you plenty of time to plan it, to execute it, do the testing, and make sure that you've got the time to do that in a smooth way that doesn't interfere with the end users that you're supporting. So that's why we see that like 75% have done the application migration within a year, and even nearly 1/4 have managed to do it within 3 months. So these may be sort of slightly smaller enterprises, or they may be in a situation where they've got a very clear picture of where they're using Java and which versions they have and so on. But it's also very reassuring to see that last statistic there. 84% said that their migration went as expected or was easier. So it really is about just thinking through the process. And as you pointed out at the beginning, we've actually produced a book, the OpenJDK Migration for Dummies Guide. You can download that for free from our website. You can get a PDF copy of that. And what we've done with that is to really sort of distill down all of the knowledge that we've gained with working with literally hundreds of customers going through this migration process, put it all into a nice, easily digestible format. The book's, it's only A5 format. It's only less than 70 pages in length. You don't even need to read the whole thing. There's, different chapters you can dip in and dip out depending on what information you need. But it goes through the necessary information you need to plan your migration, also the necessary information you need in terms of evaluating which distribution to use, what features you're looking for, and so on, and making sure that your applications maintain that maximum level of stability, maximum level of security, so that your applications run in exactly the same way they do at the moment. So yes, we're certainly seeing that migration is big concern to a lot of customers. But once they get into it, they're finding that actually it's not as bad as they thought, and they can get through it very quickly and very easily.
I think you spelled it out pretty clearly in OpenJDK migration for dummies, Simon. And, you know, I think for a lot of organizations, like you say, there's a lot of the work is really just the upfront work of taking inventory of what you have, you know. And I think probably at a SAM conference, it's a pretty relevant topic, but that's also, you know, a task that I think most organizations want to get done, and has little to do actually with the complexities of switching a JDK.
Yes.
And then you do an incredible job in that book of just spelling out the corner cases, like applets or things that apply to some organizations, but not others, that might require an alternative fix for, you know, as they're not supported anymore. So I definitely encourage looking at that book. I know Simon put an immense amount of time, basically telling all of our trade secrets, you know, in one short, easy read. Okay, so we're going to switch, Simon, because before we had on one of our prior slides that 53%, you know, same time, as much as companies are, you know, struggling with their decision to pay Oracle or to not pay Oracle, it doesn't seem that they're really actually for Java. So I'd love you to elaborate. You know, organizations are using Java for their most important applications, whether they're external facing or they're internal facing. And, you know, for that reason, I think there's the importance of making sure that those are stable and secure. But I'd love you to elaborate on this finding here, because it seems contrary in a way to what we saw before, and yet it's very much not, you know, and it's one of the reasons that Azul is here doing what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So obviously, you know, when we're looking at commercially supported Java, what are the key things that people are looking for? And it really comes down to the sort of the maintenance of the Java platform, because Java has been around for nearly 30 years. It's been developed in a very carefully controlled way, and it has very sort of well-defined maintenance behind it. So there are 4 updates each year to the Java platform. So you have January, you have April, July, and October. And when those updates come out, they contain security patches, they contain bug fixes, they may contain some performance improvements and things like that. And what you need to be able to do as a Java user is make sure that you have the ability to deploy those updates if you need to provide that maximum level of security and maximum level of stability. And how that works is quite important. So when Oracle release an update, they do that first. And then all other distributions are allowed to release their update as quickly as they like after the Oracle release theirs. And how quickly you have access to those updates is very important. So that timely releases and fixes, because the moment those updates are released, all of the details about any security vulnerabilities that are addressed in that update are made public. And that means that people who are malicious actors who want to try and exploit these things can look at those details and say, right, we can use that particular vulnerability, we can try and develop an exploit to it, and then try and attack machines that haven't been updated. So if you have to wait days or even potentially weeks for that update to come out after Oracle released theirs, then that's a period of time when people can develop exploits and try and attack your systems. And we've seen that not with the JDK itself, but if we look at some Java libraries, there are clear examples where a vulnerability has been identified, and within 48 hours, people have come up with a proof of concept for the exploit. And then within 72 hours, people are actually doing crypto mining on people's systems that haven't been updated. So having the ability to get those updates in a timely manner and not have to wait days or weeks for those updates is very, very important. Now, the other thing about that is the fact that when an update comes out, it will contain those security patches plus lots of other things, bug fixes and performance improvements. And the fact that the number of security patches is likely to be somewhere in the region of, like, say, 4 to 12, versus the rest of the number of changes is somewhere in the 300 to 400 range, having so many changes can potentially impact on stability. You fix a bug, but unfortunately that fix then affects something else, which breaks something. And we've seen that several times. In fact, in the last 22 updates, we've seen 6 of them that have needed to be re-released with a fix to a fix. And that's the kind of thing where that can really cause you problems, because if you need to roll out a patch quickly for a security issue, but it affects the stability of your application, you're stuck. You need to increase security, but you also need to keep it stable. So the way we get around that is that Oracle provide 2 versions of each update, what's called the CPU, critical patch update, that only contains security patches, and the PSU, patch set update, which is the full update. By doing that, if you need to deploy a security patch quickly, you can do that using just the security patches, the CPU. And we've never seen any stability issues with just the CPU. So you can deploy that quickly, get your system secure, and then wait for any stability issues to be addressed in the PSU, and then deploy that. So there are only Oracle and Azul who provide both of those. Other distributions only provide the full update, so that's the kind of flexibility that you need. So it's other things as well, in terms of, as we can see there, migration expertise, the fact that we've produced the book, the fact that we have a migration advisory service that can help people who are looking to migrate from Oracle to Azul. We can deliver the information that they need, the help they need in terms of planning that. And then as they're going through that, if they run into any issues, we have our support organization who can help them in terms of addressing those issues, maybe helping them with some configuration details around things like applets and Java Web Start. So there's really comes down to that technical expertise, the ability to have all of the same functionality that you get with the Oracle JDK, and having that available to make it as easy as possible to do that migration and keep your systems as secure and as stable as possible.
Thanks, Simon. All right, well, we are getting ready to wrap up our short webinar here, but I do hope that this sheds some light for everyone on the call about Oracle's licensing. To pay reasonable prices for supported Java, and to generally make sure that applications, your business critical applications, are secure and stable. On the bottom of the slide, we have an RF code. This is for the survey and report that we've been discussing, the Oracle Java Usage Pricing and Migration Report. So we hope you take an opportunity to download that. Simon, as always, and thanks again for joining us today. Your insights are always invaluable and appreciated. And of course, if anyone has any other further questions, do not hesitate to email or contact Simon or myself. Our emails are listed there, and we look forward to seeing you on episode 9. But for now, this concludes episode 8 of Brewing Better Java.